Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Quarantine Coaching Conversations. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. I am joined by Coach Harrison, the head football coach of Bethel, Kansas. And you're the Threshers, right, Coach?
That's right. We're the Threshers, the only one in the country.
Absolutely. I was a wonder boy. I went to Arkansas Tech University.
Yeah.
It was the only wonder boy in the country. They took
right.
a lot of pride in that, and I took a lot of flack for being a wonder boy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit previously, but I've been the head coach. This was just my second season at Bethel. We finished 8-3, number 24 in the country. Dropped 2 games there we probably shouldn't have, so probably could have been a little bit better than that. But yeah, so we're really excited about where we're at. I was a high school head coach for 7 years at a 6A high school here in Wichita, Kansas prior to doing this, played NAIA football. And so, it's one of those deals that it's kind of in my heart, and it kind of changed my life. I grew up in Lufkin, Texas, down in the woods of East Texas, and came up to Kansas, met my wife in college, and, man, I've just been here ever since. But, man, just have a special group of players at Bethel, special administration, and, I really love it. And, hopefully I can, through this conversation, help some people out.
Yeah, definitely. And I really wanted to talk about NAIA in particular and the different challenges. What I've been trying to do with a lot of these conversations that I'm having with coaches is really start to kind of dig into what makes it unique at their levels. And so if you would, just talk about what makes NAIA football so great to coach.
Well, I think it's a lot like, the Division II coaches I know and the Division II players I know, or that I've known over the years, right? It's the same thing, right? I don't know this is necessarily completely true, but what you hear all the time is, well, these guys just love the game, and that's why they do it, and that's why they continue playing. And I think that's definitely true. The kids that we have and the kids that we recruit at Bethel, man, they're just tough Christian warrior kids that, man, just fear nothing and love each other. And man, it's just a joy to coach these guys. And, I was at a very good high school, won a bunch of championships. But the reality is at the high school level, some kids play because it's what their buddy does, or it's kind of just what they do in the fall, and that's fine. I think there's definitely a place for that player in high school football. But what's unique when you get into the college setting, man, you have to love it, and you have to love everything about it. And that's what's been fun for me to go to the college level where the 100% of your roster are all in guys, and you're not dealing with the kid who, is doing football for different reasons, right? And so I love those guys at the high school level, certainly, but I think at this level, you certainly get that. And at the NEI level, it's been amazing. I played, my last year playing was 2004, so I'm not that old, right? I get older every year, but to see the development of our league, to come back and coach in it after playing in it, and just how much better it's gotten. And now that our league's competitive nationally, we've had a school make it to the semifinals, and so it's been cool to see that and that evolve over the last almost 2 decades now. So, man, it's just it's a blast, and I love work every day. It's not work, man. It's just crazy that I get paid to do it, to be honest with you. It's that fun.
And that's what I wanted to touch on. I think that a lot of times what people don't realize about NAIA and to an extent Division II and definitely Division III is that these kids have other options when it comes to, just going to school. They don't have to go out there and put in the amount of hours that they need to in order to be able to survive, because they could just a lot of these guys will forego like an opportunity at a state school where they can get their entire, their entire boat paid for because they qualify for whatever state scholarship might be out there. And that's not necessarily the case when you think about Division I football, because at Division I football, those kids know without that scholarship, they probably can't go to that school. And so you get a lot of guys at the Division I level who are not playing for the love of the game. They're playing for the goal of, I want to get college paid for free, or I want to try to go to the NFL because that's where some money is. And I think when you get that, not saying that those are bad goals, but you don't get the love like you do at an NAIA school where that kid that $5,000 scholarship that kid received that pays part of their tuition isn't enough to make them go, oh my gosh, like I've got to do this for the $5,000. It's because they really and truly love the game, and they love being out there and love the camaraderie with their teammates and working hard and all that stuff like that. So I think that's definitely one of those things that you see at the NAIA level that you don't necessarily see 100%. Like you said, 100% of your kids, they're there because they want to be there. Mm-hmm. I can't say that for certain at a Division I school, because I know that some of those kids are playing football because they just were a big, really good athlete. And it's interesting to see how that changes as you go through the levels.
Yeah, in Division I football, honestly, I've been coaching college for, this will be my third year, right? So 3 recruiting cycles. So I'm certainly not a lifer or an expert completely, but, when you talk about the biggest level, the highest level, and at least on the surface level, to me, watching TV, just like a normal guy, the potential lack of loyalty, it feels like, because the next 5-star that might be coming in. So what some people might consider a cutthroat mentality, right, on the roster management. And then also the transfer portal, man. I think what's helped Division II NAIA football so much in recruiting is this transfer portal thing. And I think that's one, if you're watching this and you're, a high school coach or even a recruit, I don't know how, who will watch this, but it is vitally important as a recruit, to take everyone seriously, from Division III to Division II, JUCO, whoever that might be, that really wants you, because this transfer portal thing has completely changed the game. I mean, the big boys that you see on TV, they're not even hitting the JUCOs as much anymore, because they're hitting that transfer portal and going to a kid that's been in the system, or whatever you want to call that, in the environment. And so that's helped a lot of levels, though. That's helped Division II recruiting. That's certainly helped NAIA recruiting. So, it's fascinating to watch on the outside, to see how the decisions they make at that level changes everything. And, the characteristic of a kid, you're right. What you said that made me think about is what I tell my coaches all the time is, you get what you recruit. Our retention rate this year was over 90%. That's not on accident. That's because we don't sacrifice talent for character, or vice versa, right? So we want to get the right kid that's going to fit. And, for some people, they think you can't do that and win championships. And I think we've shown, the fact that we went 8-3 this year and had a chance to, be in the playoffs, and we're on pace and on track. We're trending towards a championship. Shows a lot of it has to do with, coaching integrity, to make sure you are recruiting that right kid that's going to fit, trust in the high school coach recommendation, and, doing your legwork in recruiting, even though, everybody's certainly got budget limitations. So, no, it's fascinating stuff for sure.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that you get to really focus on at NAIA level is development of talent. You really get to see a kid go from an 18-year-old freshman to a 22-year-old senior, in many cases 23-year-old fifth-year senior, depending upon how things shake out. I remember bringing guys in, and we used to have to bring in, and you may have dealt with this or may not. It depends on. We had to bring in one year, 40 some odd freshmen, mm-hmm. and you're bringing all of these guys in, and there's no way you can retain 40-something freshmen on a team if you've got to bring 40-something freshmen in next year. It's just, but to see how many of them really, really tried hard to stick it out, and we would retain more than we thought. But you saw to see the growth, because boys, we mature different than women do. And so when you see that change from 18 to 20, and you're like, man, that's a kid I never thought was going to actually really be a significant factor for us, that now you're like, man, that kid's going to start, or that kid's going to be a significant contributor to the team. It's amazing, because a lot of time at the Division I level, you don't get that chance. Like, if that kid hasn't proven themselves by their sophomore year, they're into the transfer portal, or they're trying to move down a level, or they've given up on themselves and they just decide to quit because playing football wasn't really their goal. Their goal was to do some other things, and football was the vehicle for that, and not necessarily being in love with football. What are some of the challenges that you would say especially in recruiting, that you run into at an NAIA school when it comes to recruiting and recruiting the right kid for your program in particular?
Yeah, I think the challenge is, it's like anything, right? Everything that can be awesome and a tool for recruiting can also be a huge hindrance and an issue in recruiting. But I think the main problem, what I learned early was, it's like you talked about, right? Having experience coaching at this level, a lot of the issues that we have in recruiting weren't necessarily our fault, but it's our problem right now because of maybe 10 years ago, some coach from Bethel that I don't even know the guy, 4 coaches ago, recruited this kid or maybe lied to a kid or whatever those stories might be. And so the biggest hurdle that we have is overcoming the stereotype of NAIA or especially locally, in your region, what Bethel meant to their dad, so 30 years ago, Bethel did this. And so that's the hardest thing, is overcoming any preconceived idea of what Bethel is. And then I would say the next thing is what we learned my first month there. I was, like I said, I was a high school coach, really had no ambition to be a college coach. Things just worked out the way they worked out. Had no idea what I was going to do recruiting, took the job. And so what we did those first couple months, the first spring, we just did what everyone else did. Oh, you go on social media and you find kids and there you offer them. And we just did what everyone else did. And so at the end of that recruiting class, which we actually did okay, those guys are about to be juniors right now, good players. I mean, they're going to be a strong senior class when those guys go up. But we said, we scrapped that. And we said, let's just start and do it what would we want to do if this was my kid? And so what we tell everyone now on the recruiting end is, does it pass the My Kid test? And I have 2 daughters and a son. So if this was my daughter or my son, are you recruiting them in a way that honors God, that honors the university, and that we can all be proud of? And sometimes that means they're not the right fit, and that's okay. And then sometimes that's how you do find the right guy. And so we hope that's why we've retained so well and got so competitive. But, and then I know you asked about challenges, and I kind of talked about some other things there, but we all have budget limitations. You got to find your way around that because we don't have the multi-million-dollar TV contracts. And so you have to be creative, and you have to, utilize your resources. And our coaches have done a fantastic job of that, and our talent level has increased every year. So I think every NAIA is going to fight that, right? Is how do you do that? And, the hard part is sometimes you can find a great player who wants to come to Bethel, but they're just not the right fit. And you have to be willing to be genuine. And so that's what we do in recruiting. We just try to be, our only goal is we want to be the most genuine staff at any level in the country. And, I don't know how you measure that, but man, I certainly hope that we are that staff for sure.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. I can remember when I was at Urbana University, I was recruiting Dayton and Cincinnati, and so I was dealing with guys who all thought of themselves as Division I athletes, and then here I come in there as an NAIA coach, and it's almost like you have to recruit yourself into the door in order to be able to recruit them out the door. Have you seen that? Have you had to overcome those obstacles, not just being an NAIA school, but also being obviously a Christian university that comes with, a stigma that maybe sometimes people don't really understand, and kind of getting over that in order to really have an opportunity to get in and sell your school?
Yeah, well, first I'll touch on the Christian college part, man. For us, we tell our kids all the time, like so many times you hear Christian football and people don't necessarily know what that means, right? But we always tell the story of David and Goliath, and not the underdog story of David and Goliath. The story of our program starts after David kills Goliath. And most people don't know that part. When David killed Goliath, he cut Goliath's head off, carried it back to camp, took his sword with his own sword, and carried his sword the rest of his life. And so that's a pretty violent story. We tell that to parents on recruiting trips. We are a Christian football program. What does that mean? And we talk about the story of David and Goliath. And, it's really funny how many people don't know that part of the story, man. David was a violent cat. And
beyond that, after that, David just kicked the butts of everybody that ever tried to come up on him. Yeah. Like, David was no joke.
Yeah, and that's what we want to be. We pray before games, man. We pray for our team to be warriors like David. And people, I can tell you this, we're a flexible in school, whatever. We're number one rushing team in the country. It's not to throw us out there, but I promise you, people don't think we're soft when we're done. They hate playing us. So there's that on the Christian side. We always address that, right? Now I try to address that any clinic I speak at. I try to share that because there's so many Christian men out there that, and when I was 29, I made this mistake. I'm not better than anyone out there. I thought, okay, you can be Christian here, but then on the football field, so, and you get to it's a different place, and that does not have to be the way it is. In fact, and it shouldn't be the way it is, right? And so we always address that in recruiting, which is why I even told that story. But as far as overcoming coaches, it's really funny. So when I was a high school coach, I was a really good program. I mean, won championships, had really good players, beat a lot of people by a lot of points. As soon as I became an NAIA coach, now those guys kind of look down at me, like the same guys that I beat the year. Sounds bad, but the same I was a head coach at the school, and we had just beat them by 70. And now NAIA coach, and they were looking at me like I didn't know what I was talking about, And so we fight that, but you just have to laugh and just know that a lot of times coaches that are a different spot. I get it. If Nick Saban walks in, it's really cool, and I would probably ignore Coach Clemens, right, to talk to Coach Saban's in my building, right? And I understand that. We try not to be that way to anyone, but we also try to understand, because I was a 29-year head coach who had no idea what I was doing. I'm at a 6A high school. People just are at a different spot in their journey, right? And sometimes they're going to do that. All you can do is smile, shake their hand, look them in the eye, pin your shoulders back, and have your chest up, and know that when those guys are our age and have some more experience, they'll look back and realize, I probably treated that guy bad, but, that's okay, and I will say the mistake most coaches make, and, not that I'm out here to give recruiting advice to coaches, but sometimes that tells you you're not going to get that guy's kid. The saddest part of that whole story is the perfect fit for Bethel College, who could be a guy that I have a lifelong relationship, could miss out on coming to Bethel College because their coach does that. But you have to move, because what most coaches, and I would say mistake they make, is they don't realize when you leave, what is that coach going to tell that kid? You don't want to go to Bethel, or whatever it is. And so it's that hurdle. Quite honestly, is just, there's plenty of kids out there. Let's just move on and find somebody else. And I think you can waste a lot of your time and energy on a kid you're never going to get at a school like that. And it is sad, but you have to be smart about your time.
Absolutely. You can't, you got to be efficient with your time, because your time is money and you don't have a lot of money. It's like recruiting budgets. I think one of the biggest hurdles that I found was just the overall budget that we had for recruiting. I was going down and trying to hit an entire, major metropolitan city, with 30 to 40 high schools in a couple days, because that's all I could afford to be down there for. It's next to impossible. And so I found myself trying to kind of like look through rosters and go, I've got no chance at this school. Like, they're not going to look at me, so I'm not going to go there. And I know I probably missed out on a kid here and a kid there that I wasn't able to get. But I had to go to places I was going to get the most bang for my buck. The places where I knew I was going to see 5 and 6 and 7 kids that are going to be interested in coming to my school, because they didn't have anything else coming on. I like to tell this story because I think this is a gem story, and this is to me how slim the line is between talent between NAIA and Division I. Because a lot of people look at NAIA and they go, oh well, it's just not as talented a football. So I was recruiting Cincinnati, and I went down, and they had their prospectus out there, and they had this tight end, and this tight end, they were like, yeah, he doesn't have any offers. And, I'm looking at the tight end, he's like 6'5", and I'm looking at film on him, and I'm like, how in the hell does this kid not have any offers? Like, what is going on? I'm talking to a young man, you know what? I'm the tight ends coach at my school. I guarantee you, if you come to our school, you're going to be the feature attraction. Like, we're going to change. And I'm talking, I'm not even lying to him. I had sent the film to my offensive coordinator. My offensive coordinator was like, yo, do whatever you got to do to get that dude here. And it wasn't lying to him. We literally we were ready to change the offense for this dude. He was that good. And I couldn't understand why Division I program. And they were like, well, you know, some programs don't think he's strong enough. Some programs don't think he's fast enough. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, Notre Dame comes in and offers him. It's Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph. I almost had him at my NAIA school.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that dude would have put up ungodly numbers.
No.
At my NAIA school. It's crazy how good the talent is. I remember beating Dayton, University of Dayton, you know, on a regular basis, being competitive with them. That's an NAIA program and a Division I program. That's one of those quote unquote non-scholarship, but they're a really good, solid Division I program. And we used to give them all they wanted, and we've actually beat them some years. And so, just kind of looking at that dynamic and the talent, I always tell the guys, like, if an NAIA program is recruiting you, it's because they think that you might be a Division I talent that's going to fall through the cracks. Like, don't take that as you're going to something. Take it as a compliment that they believe in you that much. When it comes to recruiting, I think another thing that gets lost is offering of scholarships. And I really wanted to focus in, before I got you out of here, on this. There's a way in which NAIA schools are able to stack money. Can you just talk a little bit about how that process goes?
Yeah. So, as quickly as I can, FBS, right? The big boys, Power Five, those are 85 fulls. Like, you get an offer and you sign there, that's free, whatever you want to call that, other than your time, right? But it's a full boat. You go Division II down, Division II partials their scholarships. They get 36 fulls. They have to divvy that up on their team. So there's very few full scholarships in Division II. I would probably none. Yeah.
I'm about to say, if any.
Yeah, because they're going to figure in your Pell Grants and they're going to figure out some other federal aid, and they're going to give you potentially great deals, but going to get fulls. And then Division III would be need-based, academic only. So really, if you visit a Division III school, the coach offers you a roster spot. That coach has no influence on your scholarship. And that's okay. The coaches know that. They offer you a roster spot. Then you go meet with financial aid. And actually, per NCAA rule, they can't talk financial aid with you.
They don't have any say.
They have nothing to say. Yeah. So you can be Kyle Rudolph, and you're on the roster. We do offer at the NAIA level. It's actually unique to each school. That's kind of the cool part of NAIA. And that's why you can't lump schools. The NAIA it's unique to each institution. Okay, so you can't compare one to the other even completely, right? You do, at NAIA schools, you do have athletic scholarships and academic scholarships, and those are stacked on top of each other. One of the questions that we get a lot is people don't think NAIA can get Pell Grant. Like, people just don't know. They're still accredited schools. The same agencies that accredit public schools accredit ours, so the degree is just not the same. It's a legitimate degree that's accredited. But you take your, there's tuition, room and board, dorms, all that good stuff. You are able to stack your federal grant money. There's actually some private school grants that you can't get at public schools. So there's federal Pell Grant, what we call the private school Pell Grant. Then you get your athletic scholarship, academic scholarship, and that all, starts ticking away down at out-of-pocket cost. And when I tell every kid, even kids we recruit in our own conference, each school is going to have their perfect kid or their right kid that's going to have this, fit in there perfectly to where your out-of-pocket cost is, very affordable. What happens is we've had kids at times tell us that they can't afford to come to Bethel, right? Whatever their out-of-pocket is. But then they walk on at a Division I school and pay the full price. And it's like 3 times more than it would have cost to come to Bethel. And so that's okay. If that's your dream and that's what you want to do, it's totally fine. But just make sure you're aware that, nowadays, which with social media, which is fine. We're really big on social media. It's probably how you found me anyway. We do a lot of stuff on social media, but people are celebrating signing as a walk-on. Well, just do be aware that, walk-ons don't get scholarships. Preferred walk-ons now do get room and board, I believe, but you still pay tuition. And so that all changes a lot, and who knows what the new rules will be next year. But no, what's unique about NAIA is that we are able to stack scholarships. So you're not just academic or just athletic. You get to stack both. And man, what most coaches don't understand, we go over financial aid up front very early with families for anyone to think that I'm capable of talking a family into spending more money than they have is crazy. I can't do that. All I can do is present an offer, talk about the options for payment, depending on what their out-of-pocket kids. And for some parents, it's perfect, and for some parents, it's not. But what happens a lot is, and part of this is the whole not my fault, but my problem thing. Maybe someone out there that's a high school coach now was lied to, or maybe they didn't understand financial aid and they felt like they got a raw deal. We try to be very upfront, very early when we offer someone. So if you see an offer on Twitter, that young man has seen a financial aid package, and their family has seen it. And I don't know about for every other school, but I can promise you we have talked to their family. This is what it is, and we're really proud of our scholarship because we do give very good scholarships, but most people don't even know that, or they don't even let you get to that spot. So if you're going to ignore me as a kid, you can't even let me show you this financial aid package that we're all excited about as a coach, and the kid or the family or the high school coach prevents us from even showing this. And maybe they do spend a bunch more money because they weren't even allowed to talk to me because the BC on my shirt meant Bethel College, not Boston College,
Boston College, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I know that even for, when I was there, and this was I was there 07 09 when I was coaching NAIA. The first thing we always talked about what your package was going to look like. We had various tiers in our program. Look, these are the guys that are going to get this type of money. These are the guys that are going to get this type of money. If we're in a cycle and we can't find a guy that's meant to get that high level money, then we break that up and we try to, fill in those other guys to be able to better serve. But so we were always upfront. The one thing I tell people as a high school coach, because I understand, that world, is when you look at college and football scholarships, if you're not getting a full ride, major Division I football scholarship, then you have to think about how much debt you're willing to take on from an education. And to me, I always tell them, if you are going to take on debt, if you can walk out of college somewhere between, $20,000 and $30,000 in debt, that's good debt. What you got to avoid is the $50,000 to $60,000 to $70,000 because you're at random XYZ school. So it's gotta make sense for what you're going to do when you get out of college and you have to pay that money back. And so just trying to explain to them that not all debt is bad debt. As a high school coach, trying to advise these kids, not all debt is bad debt. You have to understand where you are, understand where your family is, and what you're able to do out of pocket. And if there's nothing out of pocket and that you can't, make that work, or you're not comfortable with whatever that number is, you're going to have to find, whatever type of loan to subsidize, then you shouldn't do it. And that's when you have to make those hard decisions. Yes, XYZ college might love you and they really want you to come, and they're giving you a great offer, and that's an offer that they love and that they believe in, but in your mind and in your heart, that's not going to be something that you're comfortable with trying to pay. Then you need to be able to walk away from that, because the worst thing for me is for a guy to get to a school, they make it work that first year, And then every year it's about money. Like every year it's oh, I just don't know how we're going to make this work this year, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back because of I had some kids that I had advised and they went off to, to colleges, and that was a thing. And I had told them, I was like, listen, you got to be comfortable with this going in. And they said they were, and then they got out there, and then their parents started hitting them with the stories and trying. I think a lot of parents don't necessarily intend to do it, but they make their kids feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to be upfront with them and show them, hey, this is how it's going to lay down. This is the money that you're going to get from us. This is what you're going to have left to take care of. That's just something that, even sometimes at the Division I level, when they're trying to get you in there without giving you a full scholarship, mm-hmm. they don't really tell you the full story until you're already in there.
Yeah, it's what I quickly learned. People ask me, what's different, right? So I used to run the weight room when I was a high school football coach. That's what I did. I ran the weight room and head coach, and that's what I did here in Kansas. But now my life is financial aid. That's what I do. We don't do group visits at Bethel, so we don't do big group visits. We do individual visits only. And that way I spend hours with families, and we do talk through those things. And, it's like you said, financial aid is such a uniquely individual thing, and you can have two best friends from the same high school, but their financial stories can be completely different, and they can be the best of friends and love each other. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's right for A and not right for B. And so that's what you have to do ethically, I think, as a coach, and go over it with families and work through it to help them make that decision like you talked about. And like you talked about degrees, you're 100% right. We tell all of our kids, come get a meaningful degree, okay? If you're going to come and be pre-med at Bethel, which we do have pre-med, we have several pre-med kids on our team. Look, they're talk about cost. That's going to happen when you leave Bethel. You got med school.
Absolutely.
And so just what you talked about, right? So what amount of out-of-pocket are you willing to pay for that? And so I think what most high school coaches don't understand is what you just talked about. So it was a blessing that you got to see this side of it. But it really does matter. What are you going to do? Like, what do you want your major to be, right? And we try to really guide kids through that while they're here on their recruiting trip, to where you are making a decision that's going to pay you, because you want to be meaningful, right? That's what we say, a meaningful degree for
Absolutely.
You. And, and I do think that's really important. And families, you hope that everybody understands that, even high school coaches. I think the hardest part is, like you talked about, now you're being on the high school side, you do want the best for your kids, and you want to make sure you are advising them and trusting them with a college coach that's doing the same thing, because just like you're advising them for college, we're having to advise these kids now. It's what I like about being at the college level. We talked about being a great husband when they were in high school, and we talked about being a great father one day, but I think they were just like, yeah, that says what you're supposed to say. When you get these college kids,
now it's real.
Yeah, it's real. And so that's kind of our challenge, right? We're trying to get them ready for the real world. And so, yeah, it's a unique challenge and it's different, but the financial aid parts, it's always the most important. It's always number one, and so you have to address it early, and man, we really do our best to do that. And, every now and then there's a scenario like you talked about, right? Like, you can sit with a family and go over it down to the dollar and go year to year to year to year. And for whatever reason, they didn't, I don't know, their emotions got in the way of their logic, and sometimes that happens, but man, we do everything we can to get ahead of that. So.
Absolutely. And I know there are a lot of good coaches that are out there that are doing it the way you're doing it. It's a world that I don't believe enough high school players take advantage of. There's so many high school football players that, because they didn't get a Division I offer, just go, well, I didn't get into Georgia. I didn't get an offer from Georgia, or I can't walk on to Georgia. I'm not playing football. And it's a shame, because there's so many phenomenal universities outside of the universities that you see on TV or that you hear about when you watch, whatever your sports channel is. Mm-hmm. And to really get the opportunity to understand that would be great. That's why, we've been working on, trying to get this NAIA showcase off. And I know that you had committed to coming down, or you were one of the guys in your staff committed to coming down. And we're hoping to be able to get that, going this year after the season's over with, because we really want us to get kids to understand that it's not just that, these are schools that you've never heard of. These are schools that you should hear of, because they're phenomenal schools with great alumni and great connections and great experiences. And just because you don't go to Notre Dame doesn't mean that you can't have a great experience at Indiana Wesleyan. You know? And so that's the thing that I really want, coaches to understand, so that they start to really embrace NAIA schools when those NAIA schools come through. I love when a coach comes through the door and I've never heard of the school before, because it rarely happens. Like I'm a nerd when it comes to learning about schools, and I love I love school. So that's always kind of been a thing for me post high school. When I was going through the process, I knew nothing about anything, and my coaches didn't know anything. And so because of that, I never knew a Bethel existed. And I just think about those things when I think about my career and what I may have been able to go and see and do if I had known more. And so really that's been a goal of mine ever since I worked in the NAIA. Like, more people need to know about these schools, because there's some great schools out there. And so bringing that awareness is an awesome thing. Coach, why don't you give everybody your social media? Let them know how they can find you if they want to follow you or follow the program.
Yeah, so my Twitter is at Coach Harrison BC. If you go there on my profile, it'll be linked to our football account too. And we have daily posts on there, which is, just our saying is make the big time where you're at. So when you look on my Twitter profile, that's my background. So make the big time where you are. And it's just what you talked about. What's different for an NAIA school and a Division I? I've been on Division I campuses and actually spoke at clinics at a really big university. The difference is when you come to our campus, you're going to get treated like a D1 kid. Our kids are going to shake your hand. They're going to talk to your parents. You're going to be immersed in our players, and it's truly an uplifting environment. And so, man, it's as big time as you can get as far as relationships, and then hopefully postgraduate success for all of our kids. But follow us on Twitter. That's the best way to do it. I would tell everyone, man, like you just talked about, it is hard. We do recruit nationally. We have kids from Key West, Florida, all the way to Los Angeles, California on our team, everywhere in between. We do have to take advantage of social media as far as reaching out to us, and we will evaluate your film. Coach, if you send us your kids, we'll make sure we won't waste time on a kid that we can't get accepted. So we're going to, send us everybody. We'll target those kids. We involve everyone. And, just know that if we're recruiting your kid, we're going to be genuine and treat those guys right. And we don't want to be for everyone. We're not for everybody. We have a team full of high ACT, 23 average ACT, tough Christian kids who want to win a national championship. That's who we're for. And if you don't fall into those things, you're probably not going to be for us. And that's totally okay. So we're going to be up front the recruiting process. But I do appreciate you having me. Yeah, absolutely. And the best thing is they may not be for you, but there's a school out there for them. And in the NAIA, 100%, you're right. There's a school out there for them, and all it just takes is a little bit of research on their part and their parents' part, and their coach's part, to be able to find a fit that's going to match what they need to be successful at the next level. Coach, I really do appreciate it. Great conversation. You are a great follow. I like you. You got that infectious personality. It comes through in your social media. I don't know if you realize it or not, but it's a great thing. My first head coaching job was at 26. I was totally not ready for it. I know what that's like. Not ready. I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean I got to deal with stuff that have nothing to do with football? Hey, well, you live United. No, everybody's ready to be a head coach until they're ready. Yeah, I actually graduated in 2004 as well. Yeah. And I went to work at a school up in Maine and had an opportunity 2 years into coaching. Somebody gave me a head coaching job, and I was like,
it was one of those things where you like, I can't turn a head coaching job down at 26, can I? Like, I didn't have that advisor to be like, you're not ready for that.
Yeah.
But it's a true thing. The one thing I was always respectful of coaches coming through, because the way I came up in coaching was at a postgraduate prep school. So every year we had kids at every different level. So we got them in and we gave them away at the end of the year. And so there was a lot of connections going on. So that was one of the things that I never had to deal with. But I used to go to those, to those clinics or those showcases, and you would see some of those coaches like not even come over and talk to, an NAIA coach, because they're like, oh, it's an NAIA coach, blah, blah. And I'm like, realize 90% of your kids should be talking to that guy. and so it's an interesting thing. I really do appreciate it. Again, follow Coach Harrison on Twitter. Give him your social one more time, Coach.
Coach Harrison BC.
Coach Harrison BC. Definitely follow him. He's a great follow. If you have a kid who's, like he said, an intelligent, smart Christian leader, that's the place that you want to be, especially if they're in the plans for Smash Mouth football. That's definitely a place that you're going to want them to be. For Quarantine Coaching Conversation, I've been Coach Clemens. Make sure you follow me on social media at Gene Clemens. Make sure you like the YouTube channel at Coach Gene Clemens. And until next time, everybody stay safe out there, be healthy, be loved, stay prayed up, and we'll talk to you soon.